So have you ever been out shooting with your gimbal and thought to yourself, man, I could totally ditch this gimbal if my camera just recorded gyroscopic metadata that I could use to stabilize my shot in post? Well, maybe you didn't, but some smart people at Sony did. And actually the shot that you're seeing right now was shot without a gimbal, just using a selfie stick.
Before we go any further, I just want to say thank you to Moment for letting me use an A7S III for these tests. This is not a sponsored video. So what exactly is gyroscopic stabilization anyway? Well, it's post-stabilization, like warp stabilizer, but far more accurate because it uses additional data recorded by a gyroscopic sensor inside the camera. This data tracks the camera's position and rotation and acceleration at every point whenever you're recording. And then when you take it into Sony specialized software in post, it reframes the shot to neutralize the shakes in that movement. Gyro stabilization currently works with the Sony A7S III, ZV-1, FX9, and the RX0 Mark II. As far as I know, none of the other Sony cameras can use this feature, but I'm sure they're going to be adding it to a lot more cameras soon. So in order for this stabilization to work properly, you have to shoot your clips the right way. You have to turn off any in-body stabilization and in-lens stabilization, which means steady shot off completely, and you have to crank up your shutter speed as high as possible. You need to have as little motion blur in the shot as possible, otherwise you get some pretty messed up looking results. Okay, once you've recorded your clip and copied it to your hard drive, then you're going to want to open up Sony's Catalyst Browse software, which is their free software for importing and logging. So as you scroll through your clips, you're going to see that some of the clips have a little shaky film strip icon next to them. That icon means that they have gyro metadata and you can stabilize them in Catalyst Browse. If they don't have that little icon, then you cannot stabilize them in Catalyst. So select the clip that you want, select the in point, select the out point, and then click Stabilize. It'll analyze for a few seconds, and then you'll see a preview of your stabilized clip. And by default, Catalyst will over-stabilize and zoom in way too much on the clip. In order to adjust that, go to the upper right-hand corner of the screen, click the little eye icon, and it will open up your crop factor settings. So what I do is I just zoom out further and further until I see the shake start to reappear in the shot. Once I find the perfect settings, I export the clip, and then I can import it into my editing program just like any other video clip. The less stabilization you have to apply in post, the less crop factor there will be. If you have a shot that was pretty steady to start out with and you're just getting rid of the minor shakes, you'll be able to crop in minimally, keeping most of your resolution. So why go to all this extra trouble? Why not just use warp stabilizer in post? Well, let's start with this unstabilized footage and see how well we do with the usual type of post stabilization. So here I've applied Final Cut Pro's Smooth Cam, and we're getting some unwanted jerking motion to the side because it's trying to keep the background from moving. And here's Final Cut Pro's Inertia Cam, which gives us equally unusable results, though admittedly it does look pretty cool. And finally, here's the gyro stabilization using Catalyst, and there's no errors here because it's not guessing. It's just using the recorded data of the camera's movement from the gyroscope, and it's reframing the shot accordingly to smooth out the bumps in that movement. What about the in-body image stabilization of the A7S III? Well, let's do a little comparison. Right now you're seeing handheld footage using intelligent active stabilization. The IBIS tends to not handle walking shots very well, especially if there's some sort of rotational movement involved. It does a lot better with linear movement or pans or tilts. Now here's the same kind of movement. I turned off steady shot in the camera and then I stabilized it in post with Catalyst Browse. Gyro stabilization is clearly a much better option here. Gyro stabilization is great for a variety of shots that would have been really hard to stabilize otherwise, such as macro shots. Warp stabilizer would do a horrible job with these shots because every object in the frame is moving, and because there's a lot of out of focus blur in the background. Also, shots like this with the big horizon roll don't stabilize well with warp stabilizer, and gimbals don't like them either. But gyro stabilization does a pretty good job. Next, I wanted to try using a gimbal to take out the majority of the shakes in the shot, and then just using gyro stabilization to take out whatever was left. Because with extreme movements, even gimbals plus in-body image stabilization can't always give me perfect results. So to make this extra challenging, I used my 85mm lens on my A7S III, giving me a long focal length which adds shake to the shot. Then I put it on my IceCam Tiny Ultra Vision gimbal and ran at full speed. So here's how the unstabilized shot looks with no in-body image stabilization and no stabilization in post. And here it is with gyro stabilization in Catalyst. And this is the result with the intelligent active image stabilization. It's almost as good as the gyro stabilization, but there's still just a little bit of jerky panning motion going on. One more test, this time he's running toward the camera. All stabilization off. Now here it is with gyro stabilization. And with intelligent active stabilization, which in this shot actually looks just as good as the gyro to me. For the final torture test, I switched out my lens for the 28 f2 and I put the gimbal on a monopod and I extended the monopod all the way up and tested it out running at full speed. The monopod tends to amplify the camera shake that's transmitted when I walk or run, so this is a shot that no gimbal could possibly stabilize. There's a lot of shake that gets through, especially because I'm changing altitude and I'm panning during the shot, which puts extra stress on the gimbal motors and makes the shot shakier. And here it is with Catalyst browse stabilization. I was hoping it would be perfect, but unfortunately you can see there's still quite a bit of shake that gets through. So what I did was, I applied just a little bit of warp stabilizer in post, and I was able to get the shot to the point of being usable, though not necessarily perfect.
So what's the takeaway from all of this? Are gimbals dead? Are we going to start shooting handheld all the time? Well, I don't think so, because there's still some caveats, like that added crop, the unpredictability of not knowing exactly how stable it will end up being in post, and the loss of motion blur, which are all pretty big factors. But I'm still super psyched about gyro technology because it makes it easy to get shots that used to be super difficult. It's going to be more of a supplement to the existing stabilization technologies instead of a wholesale replacement. And for me, that's a huge thing still, because it means I can do shots that I never got to do before. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. In this course, you're going to learn the run and gun filmmaking techniques that I've developed over years of practice, and you'll learn how to apply your photography skills toward making great videos. We're going to start with the basics. Here you'll learn how to set up your camera and do basic camera movements, both handheld and on a gimbal. Then I'll teach you how to direct an actor and do basic scene coverage so that you'll be able to shoot a complete scene that cuts together smoothly. Then we'll get into the really fun stuff like complex gimbal moves, shooting out on the street, field audio, and hyperlapses. You'll learn some specialty skills like filming a moving vehicle, action sports, and drone filmmaking. Then the shooting lessons will finish with improvised portraits and a party on the beach, where you'll learn some important skills for low light shooting. Then it's on to editing, where I'll show you the methods I've developed so I can effortlessly work with any amount of footage. First, you'll learn how to import and organize your clips. Then you'll learn to create string outs, scenes, and master projects. Then I'll take you step by step through each scene in the film, showing you exactly how I put it together, and most importantly, why I made my creative decisions. Filmmaking is storytelling, and learning to tell a story with the edit is the most important skill of all. I'll show you how I add sound effects and music, and then we'll do some finishing touches like color correction, audio level mastering, and export. So through the making of this short film, you'll learn essential video skills that have taken me years of real-world practice to develop. So I hope you're excited. Let's go ahead and get started.